Welcome back to Headliners. Cressida, the Express, and a man who threw cement at Nigel Farage doesn't go to jail, even though they had concrete evidence.
Nice.
That's why they pay you some money.
Man avoids jail after throwing cement at Nigel Farage during an election campaign. So this is the guy from Derbyshire. He was 28, who threw cement at Nigel Farage. He was in this building site area and he just grabbed something, threw it at the bus, the battle bus. It became a battle bus. And he's been given 6 weeks in prison, suspended for 12 months. So he's not going inside. He did it. He said he did it. We saw him do it. He's also got to carry out 120 hours of unpaid work and some other bits and pieces, rehabilitation activity days. That sounds fun. And pay £85 court cost and a surcharge of £154. But he's still at large.
Yeah. Well, Nick, to be fair, he didn't tweet about it.
And that's the key, isn't it? We've got people in the riots, they're tweeting things that are misguided, but they're getting 3 years in jail. There was one young man got 3 years in jail. He went to prison in 2 days. He tweeted something very misguided about, I don't care what happens to the migrant. But still, there's a world between that and throwing a thing of cement at Farage's head. And that gets you an £85 fine and a surcharge of £154. Suspended sentence. Completely two-tier. It's called two-tier, folks. It's pure two-tier. And particularly ridiculous is that there's an element of setting an example. Why is Starmer punching all these people horribly? It's to set an example. He wants to deter people doing it, right? Because otherwise it's out of control. But this is an example. This is saying that you're allowed to attack politicians, democratically elected politicians. You're just allowed to attack them. And the punishment is incredibly light. So it's absolutely shocking. But from a sort of pure, cynical power perspective, so Carl Schmitt talked about the friend-enemy distinction, reward your friends and punish your enemies. I will say the left are good at that. Starmer is just, not that Starmer runs all the courts, but the regime is punishing its enemies and rewarding its friends.
He didn't hit Nigel Farage with it because the guy has got no aim. So do you reckon that somehow saved him?
Yeah, I guess it did, but it's not really the point, is it?
No, he's not as though he wasn't trying. He's just not good at something.
The fact that it was Farage probably saved him. Although, there is an argument that weirdly, politicians haven't taken that seriously threats against themselves still. They talked about it. The Speaker of the House was concerned about it. But when we have Joe Cox murdered, we have Sir David Amess murdered, you think, when are they going to start taking this really seriously?
Dr. Phil would say, what are your discontinuation criteria? It's like, there's nothing... What else could you do that would make people take action?
That was the best impression this show's ever seen. All the ones
it was strong. He just did an interview with Trump. Did you see it? I'd like to see you doing all the voices in these interviews.
Cressida to the Express. Gary Lineker says he doesn't like tweeting since Elon Musk took over, proving he didn't read his comments before then.
Gary Lineker whinges that he's been silenced by odd bloke Elon Musk after backlash. Well, this is a sad story, isn't it? Gary Lineker no longer finds sharing his thoughts pleasurable, which is funny because lots of people haven't found that pleasurable for a long time, Gary. Will he be missed? I don't know. He thinks that it used to be fun on Twitter, he used to be able to have little chats with people. He's complained about the fact that he used to be able to have little chats with people he either followed or were blue tick people. But now everyone's got a blue tick, so that doesn't work anymore. So it's like Gary complaining about lack of boundaries, which is sort of funny, isn't it? Unvetted people coming into his space. Lol.
Nice. Yeah, it's a very snobby mindset. It's like, who let this riff-raff into the VIP area? Oh, everyone's got a blue tick now. You only talk to blue ticks. So it's so snobby. And it's also, the idea that it's very unpleasant now. It used to no longer a pleasurable experience because people tell the truth in their replies, and that used to be censored, and all the people that told the truth were banned from the platform. So you won't like that. And one thing I find particularly distasteful is this idea that Elon Musk is a very odd bloke. I mean, maybe it's true, but he is neurodivergent. I thought the left cared about such things. Musk says he has Asperger's. I thought, what happened to that? Because really, the left hide behind this idea of we're so nice and virtue signalling. Really, it just comes down to old-fashioned bullying. We're the in-group, we're the cool people, and you can come in if you have a blue tick, but not if you're a weirdo like Elon Musk, who runs 3 or 4 massive companies and just a total loser. It's just pathetic. Isn't it just on that level, just kind of bullying?
Well, Musk is quite disturbing in that way, isn't he? Because there's lots of things about him that traditionally wouldn't have been celebrated by the human race, and yet he's this mega successful guy with a ton of kids and a lot of success with women, and it's what tech's done to the world, isn't it? It's made unlikely men really successful.
Revenge of the nerds.
Yeah, that's always been the good side. I read this story and just didn't see that as an insult. Own it, be a bit odd. I think I'm odd. I'm not, richest man in the world odd. I wish I were odder if it would get me some more of this sweet cash.
Well, that's what I mean. Sort of where, the hated GB News people or whatever. And but it comes down to that. A lot of this movement comes down to just a hatred of outsiders and a very conformist thinking.
Well, we'll move on to the Daily Mail to Australia, where a male paedophile became a female paedophile while awaiting jail. Like in Jurassic Park, where the dinosaurs swap gender. Life finds a way.
Yeah, life finds, in this case, a fairly horrific way. It's notorious female paedophile, which the Daily Mail have got to be either trolling or should be very ashamed of themselves. Inmate dubbed leader of the pack is accused of running a child abuse ring from behind bars at men's jail as police reveal shocking new allegations. So they keep calling this person herself, which I refuse to do. This person's calling him, basically. He's calling himself Jessica now, but his real name is Dean Angus Bell. Would be called the dead name in whatever circles. But you look at the pictures, obviously a man. I mean, it's completely absurd.
We haven't got the picture, but if you see the pictures, I don't think the Daily Mail are joining in with this ideology at all. I think they're just poking you to say, what? It's clearly a bloke. And I would argue that Dean Bell is upset. Well, sorry, what's the current name? Jessica is not a trans person, not a good faith member of the trans community at all, but somebody who's, well, a child abuser who's in prison and probably has all sorts of strange mental things going on, and what I don't understand is how can you do this in a male prison and not expect a lot of personal grief for that? I don't know how prisons work. Maybe they're kept by themselves. I don't know.
Well, if you're giving yourself the nickname of leader of the pack, surely you're not in solitary.
Yeah, and that's a weird name. It's got a sort of Gary Glitter, My Gang vibes is what came to my head. But it's a completely sick crime. The crimes are so horrific. You sort of get distracted by the obscenity of the wokeness, but the crimes are absolutely horrific. It's like sharing... It's like they shared letters detailing real-life experiences abusing children. I mean, it's as sick as it could be. And then you've got this secondary obscenity of pretending to be a woman. The whole thing's disgusting.
And if this were written a different way in different newspapers, it should be the case that if you are all about the trans rights, you should hate this story.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
if I were a trans person reading this, I'd cringe and I'd hate it.
Yeah. Cressida, The Telegraph, someone who hates climate change, now in charge of an art gallery, something, just stop oil on canvas.
Climate campaigner appointed National Portrait Gallery Director. So this is Victoria Siddall, I don't know how you say it. She's the first woman to have held the position. And as far as I know, she's the first climate activist to have held the position as well. I wonder if they let her bring soup to work for lunch. Lol. She's previously been involved in creating this climate change manifesto. That one of the things they're interested in, she does all the stuff you'd expect. She looks at carbon footprint, keeping the heating, ventilation and air conditioning to a minimum, all that stuff. But she's also interested, or their manifesto was, in looking at where the sponsorship comes from. And of course the art needs to be paid for. And later on it even says they looked at transport of the people coming to see the art, and they suggest visitors driving to the galleries are a problem. This is not a good business model.
It's weird, isn't it? It must be tough. She's a climate person running a gallery. She doesn't know whether to protect the paintings or destroy them. Does she toss a coin like Two-Face or that guy from No Country for Old Men? Like, let's see what the coin says. And then she destroys it. Yeah, insanity. But it's not that much of a surprise that the people into art galleries and stuff are also the people into climate, right? So it's that same demographic, basically middle-aged women with some money, isn't it?
Are they going to find out shortly that actually being against sponsorship is a problem? It's problematic.
Well, this will be the first time when indirectly her wages get paid by sponsors.
Yeah, I wonder if it will change her politics.
I feel bad for saying it's middle-aged women. When it's the activists, it's either art students or really old people, isn't it?
Yes.
Just wanted to get that in. So I get a lot of tweets.
Because one of those is your target market.
Yeah.
I want to upset one of them. I won't say which one. Nick, The Telegraph, a church has been prevented from becoming a mosque. I mean, for now.
Yeah, I mean, you think that's a good thing. Church of England stops Grade 2 listed church being converted into mosque. This was a Georgian church, the Georgian church, in fact, of St John's in Hanley. And it was built in 1788, but there was a clause in there. It was a restrictive covenant placed on it, meaning that you can't make it into a mosque. They were going to have a multi-faith library, a women's-only gym. I mean, they were going to do the whole works, but they can't, and the church may even take legal action if it's challenged. Of course you shouldn't be able to turn church into a mosque. It's just so... I mean, normally when you conquer a civilization, it's not that... we don't do it for you. We don't just, sign over the deed. It's very Michelle Welbeck in Submission, if you've read that book. I don't know what I can say here that's not going to get me lots of... I think I've already said it, but there's something very wrong about... There's just something very wrong about converting church into mosque. It just strikes me as well. I'm not going to go over Saudi Arabia either and try and make the mosque into churches. And I think that's fair.
So balanced, Nick.
Thank you.
I don't know. It's a case of use it or lose it, isn't it? Churches aren't being used. And it says here that in between this and when it was a church, it's been a cafe and an antique centre, which is great. But now it looks a bit of a state. All the windows are missing. It looks sad. It looks like it needs an episode of Grand Designs to come in and revamp it.
I do like the fact it wasn't used as a church because they had concerns over its structural integrity. Then it was used as a cafe because they don't care about those people. You might die having a coffee. Oh, what's a shame, antique centre. Well, they ain't got long left anyway. Do you know, as someone who is not really religious, I do think, I don't know if there is a God and which of those gods it would be. But either way, using the same building for two seems like you're going to upset them. Whoever it is will be like, get a new building or keep that building the way it is. Either way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a strange choice, isn't it, to want to retain a building like that because the cost of it, I mean, that's one of the problems with churches, right? Not a 1970s church, that would be OK, but these old, pretty churches, really expensive to maintain, so it would make more sense to build a new one.
Just the final section to go then, and we have the Mile High pub tossing